This meeting is now called to order. I'd like to welcome everyone this evening. Confirmation of agenda, the resolution, please.
That the board adopts the agenda for the meeting of February 9th, 2022 as presented.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor, sorry, I'm having a heck of a time seeing everyone. Councillor Charlton and Deputy Mayor Mennell. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest?
Mary?
Okay, are there any declarations of pecuniary interest this evening? Seeing none, there are no delegations, so we'll move into approval of previous minutes. A resolution, please.
That the East Elkin Community Complex Board approves the minutes of the Eecc board meeting held on November 24th, 2021.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Barber and Deputy Mayor Andrews, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We'll move into action items. The first report is CAO 07-22, user fee review. The resolution, please.
That the report respecting the East Elkin Community Complex user fee review be received as information.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Our Councillor Oslach and Councillor Chapman. And I'll turn this over to Andy.
Thank you, Chair French. The first report is really informational. It's being brought forward to allow for input from the board prior to the process really proceeding. As background, staff believe it was a wise decision for the board to hold the line on user fees during the pandemic. This really supported user groups in a period of uncertainty. We're looking to bring forward revisions in the spring that won't take effect until late August, so that impacted user groups can incorporate any fee adjustments into their advanced planning. Our anecdotal review of other municipal facility budgets for 2020 and 2021 shows that the complex is operating within the standard parameters. This review identified a clear cost benefit to have 2 ice pads in one facility. So there is no doubt that the ratepayers in Elmer and Malahide are benefiting significantly through the shared facility. This is also supported by Elmer's BMA statistics for 2020, which show below average per capita costs for the facility for Southwestern Ontario. Potentially, the issue of user fees versus taxpayer subsidization of the EECC has gotten a little more attention due to the increased reporting to the board upon these items. In most municipalities, these would simply be line items in a much larger annual budget document, where in our structure, these really stand alone because of the reporting and the subsequent votes by council. So there's a lot more attention paid to this kind of ratio. In the context of user fees, overall, it's good news as it does not appear as if a radical readjustment is required. There are some aspects such as charging of a lesser practice rate for youth groups that may need to be reviewed to ensure that a benefit doesn't exist in the EECC that isn't being offered in neighboring municipalities and communities. Overall, though, the level of subsidy and the fee recovery are very close to what we see around us. There is, however, a need for us to look and apply increases in the fall of 2022, simply due to things like increased labor, electricity costs, and supply costs, just because we haven't been doing them every year. With that, I'll try my best to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions for Andy? I don't see any hands up. Those that I can't see, do you have any questions? Because if you do, just speak up. Okay, I guess there aren't any questions, Andy. So with no further questions or comments, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item up is report CAO 08-22. It's East Elkin Community Complex 2022 capital budget.
That the report
Resolution.
respecting, that the report respecting the East Elgin Community Complex 2022 capital budget be received as information, and that the EECC board approve the 2022 capital budget in the amount of $377,000, and further that the EECC board's recommendation be forwarded to Malahide and Elmer councils for final approval.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Deputy Mayor Andrews. And I'll turn this over to Andy again. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you, Chair French. So this is the same capital budget that was presented to the board in late November. The one comment that we received at that meeting was to look at an electric ice resurfacer. We have identified that this will be built into the RFP document so that the board has the option to consider electric or whatever the best proponent is, but we aren't recommending a change in the capital allocation for that project. As some historical background, significant increases to future capital costs were presented to the board starting in the 2020 budget to allow for some advanced planning around this. So at that time, we projected $204,500 in 2022. It has been impacted though by the deferral of the ice resurfacer last year in the amount of 105, and the decision not to proceed with the skate tile replacement in 2021 just due to the unfavorable quote. So very much if you take the 204 that we were projecting 2 years ago and you add 165, it gets very close to the 377 that we're presenting to the board now. In terms of that number too, it might be also important to note that we don't have the ability as a board to factor in project deferrals. So as you see, we have the 60,000 that was allocated last year that wasn't utilized, but we don't have that. The municipalities retain it. So each municipality would technically have 30,000 against this capital budget already. Comments from Malahide indicated a desire to reduce capital contributions in 2022, but I will hand it over to Rob in a second, but I just wanted to highlight for the board members that are on Elmer Council that any change won't impact our approved 2022 levy budget, as the capital is funded out of reserves. So it's any amount that is unspent will just remain there for next year. In terms of the trust account, Heather is meeting with our auditor next week. However, we're comfortable at this time indicating that the $83,000 figure is below what's currently held by the board, and the board could allocate up to $100,000 from that account with no concerns from staff. That would have to be a separate motion for the capital budget, as expenditures from that fund require independent approvals from each council. So that's in the terms of reference. Finally, I would just highlight that there's always some danger in pushing capital items to future years, as it creates additional cost pressures for those years. So these costs really only increase. Staff do, however, understand that the board is really in a unique position in terms of delivering affordable budgets to their constituents, and we appreciate that. With that, Rob, would you be able to provide the board with an update on your recent discussions on capital?
Certainly, Andy. First, I want to thank Tom for all the work on this capital budget. He has done a fantastic job, and I will probably defer to Tom on some of this stuff. The ice resurfacer, that's sort of a must-have for us. You're about 10 months out of delivery time for this vehicle, and that doesn't include the procurement process. And as we are all aware, that's about a 3-month process time. You get an RFP out the door and back in, and you review the results and recommend for an award. You're probably a year away from getting that ice resurfacers, and it has been showing signs of wear. You're seeing increased maintenance cost. From staff's opinion, that's sort of a must-have. We're in the business to do ice, and this equipment is sort of mission critical to deliver the programs at the arena. As Andy suggested, it's probably a bit premature for us to make a decision on the type of resurfacer we choose. I know there's been a lot of questions whether an electric or natural gas or propane is the right one. What we would do is build all of those options into the RFP model, get the information back, including all of the add-ons and everything that would take, and then the board can make a recommendation moving forward. The skate tiles, as the board will recall, last year staff put out a call for the replacement of a portion of the skate tiles. It came in significantly higher than anticipated. This is the new number, same area. You'll also notice this is about half the work. There's another portion further down the line as well. I reached out to the skate tile providers to find out where the optimum project size would lie. So for example, if we were to do one room at a time for the next 10 years, are we going to be paying a premium? There is a minimum size to this project before we start to see increased costs. So I think what we're showing here is we think that the best way to tackle this project would be over 2 years. There's no guarantees that future prices are going to remain. In fact, we're seeing price increases across the board. The skate tiles, Tom has gone through extensively with me on this, and he's gone through the repairs that he's made over the last couple of years. I would say that there is an opportunity, if the board wishes, is to maybe blend this project over a few years. I think we've got about in the neighborhood of about 8,000 square feet to do. So you're looking, 200,000. You could potentially do about 2,000 square feet a year without impacting the unit price on that. I just want to remind the board, though, that comes as a cost as well. The time you do all those additional procurements, you're asking for warranty, you're asking for the RFP documents. There's a lot of staff time to break those things back out. The other advantage of doing this in two larger projects is you sort of have some capital in the market. You can ask for things like an extended warranty if your project is of a sufficient size. So the smaller that you go, you're going to have to live with what the standard warranties and stuff like that are. So you're kind of gaining there by maybe doing this project over two projects. The hot water heaters, they're at the end of their life. There's two there now that aren't working. One's working sporadically, I believe, Tom, and one's sort of our go-to. So those are mission critical as well. Tom has got the numbers on how much hot water we use every day, every flood. So those are in a state where that's sort of a must-have for us as well. There are repairs to the Olympic room. I was surprised when I went back there. You've had 17 years of the ice resurfacer with studs on the tires traveling that same track, because it comes in, it goes out, it backs around, and the wear on that concrete is substantial. Staff have included a $15,000 line item this year to do some exploratory, some investigation on how to fix the whole back end of that. But right now, I think 15,000 to do some isolated repairs and do some test locations. Tom has some theories and stuff that he'd like to try to see moving forward if there's a better solution than what's there. And the security cameras, currently it's in dire need. I don't even believe that the ones are really functioning as they're supposed to be functioning, Tom. And if I'll do that half, and Tom, I'll throw it over to you in case I've missed anything.
Thanks, Rob. No, you've covered everything. The security system itself, we have one camera working, and it's sporadic as well. And the infrastructure, it's outdated, and staff can't even access anything. So it's basically just ornaments hanging on the wall right now. And you've covered off everything else, Rob. So I'm happy to entertain any questions.
Yeah, and sorry, I should add to as well for the board's benefit. I think if there is something that the board would be looking to pull from this year capital, although we stand by the recommendations of the capital budget, that it would likely be the skate tile. But I would pass it off to the CAO of Malahide as well. Oh, so sorry, Rob.
Just one thing with the deferral, I'd like to say that it does come as a potential cost. We see prices are increasing. The oil prices are at a record high. There's no guarantees that you still won't pay a premium by breaking this project down over 4 years. You might at the end find out it's more expensive than doing it in the two separate areas.
Thanks, Rob, and sorry, Adam. Yeah.
Thank you, Andy, and through you, your worship, and members of the board. What we've certainly reviewed, and we thank Elmer staff for putting together the report. Our comments are mainly pointing to the fact that historically, Malahide has been asked to contribute $25,000 per year to the EECC capital budget, but we're now contributing around $95,000 per year. The EECC's capital budget as presented this evening for 2022 requires a contribution of for Malahide only of $188,500. This is obviously a large jump from what we've previously been asked to provide. Our treasurer, Adam Boylan, he's not in attendance tonight this evening. He did submit his regrets, but he has advised that the township's been putting away money into its reserves beyond its annual capital costs. So we do have some funding set aside. And given this, the township's treasurer was able to fund the EECC capital requests without any significant concern. So with regard to the 2022 capital budget, staff doesn't have significant concerns with those proposed projects. If there is any opportunity for deferral, we do believe that those can be explored. But what Elmer staff has provided is a long-term capital forecast as part of the capital budget that includes project costs from 2022 to 2032. And as for these future years, however, the capital forecast Elmer has provided does raise some apprehension, and it is largely to do with the planned parking lot replacement in 2023 at a cost of approximately $600,000. And we're not convinced that we can reasonably go to funding to $243,000 on average from 2023 to 2025. So those are where our concerns are. We don't disagree that there's some work outstanding, but we're just a bit hesitant with regards to how much we've been historically putting away for some of these capital projects and what's being tabled this evening.
Are there any further reports from staff? Are there questions from the members?
Just a question, Mary.
Go ahead.
Rob has suggested that the skate tiles be spread over 2 years, so that would mean approximately $75,000 in 2022 and $75,000 in 2023. Is that right, Rob?
Through you, Madam Chair, it shows further down in the budget the second component of the skate tiles. Just get a little zoom in. Tom, do you recall which year that's in?
Yes, hi Rob. It's in 2023, and we have the skate tile.
Sorry, 1, 2, 3. Skate tiles were deferred in 2022. It's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines down. It shows another 100,000 for next year, 2023.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the overall expenditure on skate tiles is $250,000 then.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. No, I don't have problems with the 2022, but I certainly, as Adam stated, going in 2023, there's some pretty hefty price tags.
Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, I think staff were just kind of giving the members of the board a peek around the corner, if you will, of what's coming down the pipe. I know the parking lot has drawn everyone's attention. I think if you pull into that parking lot and if you've used it recently, you'll notice that it is starting to deteriorate. And so staff have got it on a list for you. The one thing with asphalt is that when it starts to pothole and it starts to go, you see it goes very quickly. So I think by showing it on there, it gives everyone an opportunity to say this parking lot is coming in. It's going to have to be addressed. And I think it's a substantial amount of pavement and it's a substantial cost by anyone's measure. So I think what we're trying to do with 2023 and on is to kind of give everyone a peek around the corner at what's coming down the pipe. Just because it's on the list for 2023, if it happens to get deferred out to 2024, if we can get another year out of it, I think that's where the board has historically gone. They've deferred that project. And of course, the ECCC staff can't tell you how to fund it. But if you know that that parking lot is 3 years away, maybe a third of each person's share in your municipal budget over the next 3 years is not a bad plan. But all we can do is sort of put it on the list to show you this is what we see coming down the line for your own, for the benefit of the board.
So Rob's basically what it is it's long range forecasting. So it's just a plan. It's not carved in stone. And another thing is, if we don't have a plan and we want to apply for grants, we'd be in further trouble. It's better to have the plan and have this way forward so that when we do apply for grants, we'll have a better chance of getting some. So we have to be out there with this and have that information. It doesn't necessarily mean it's carved in stone, but we have to be proactive and we have to be prepared for the future. And this is what this is projecting, is future costs. Councillor Barber, did you have your hand up?
I did, Madam Chair. A couple of thoughts. The 11-year capital budget forecast is good to have at this particular time, but there's quite a wild fluctuation in the dollar expenditures in several of the different years. Could that document be rejigged to level out the playing field so that the expectations from the two respective municipalities could be better addressed without, again, that wild fluctuation in dollars? And secondly, as far as the resurfacer goes, if it's a more than a year expectation to receive the resurfacer, could that dollar, or would that dollar amount actually be coming out of the 2023 budget? I know it doesn't, it's the same dollars, but could that be shifted to 2023?
I'll perhaps answer if it's okay, Mayor French, I'll answer the first question, then I'll ask Rob to answer the second one. For the board, I think the one thing about is particularly getting back to the parking lot, for that grant that we were unsuccessful in getting, you had to have construction in 2023. So we didn't really have an opportunity to look at putting that parking lot to a different year. In order to apply for the grant, that parking lot needed to be in 2023's budget document. That was one of the factors that impacts what's before you. But yeah, we are looking at trying to get the blips, if you will, out of our capital budgets, both in this and both for the town of Elmer, because we can see that happening there as well. So it needs to be palatable for the councils and for the taxpayers, that's for sure. And with that, I'll defer to Rob about the second question.
Go ahead, Rob.
Thank you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Barber. I think I project with Tom's assistance, we were on the phone trying to find out, it's likely it's going to be a year out before you get the machine. The question as to how it's funded by each municipality is probably best directed to each treasurer. For example, if you have that money or you have been setting that money aside, you simply wouldn't pull it out of reserves. Or if you haven't been setting that money aside, that might be an opportunity for you to fund half in this budget and then half in the 2023 budget. But I've Heather's, maybe a better question for Heather if she's available.
Through you, Madam Chair, and to members of the board. So for the 105,000 that we were going to split this year, if we would like to kick it off this year, we would still need to approve the budget per se, but the money would stay in reserve until we would draw it down through the invoicing process. But we, at this point, in order to even kick it off, we would need a budget approval for it.
Okay, are there any other questions? Councillor Widner, go ahead. Are you on mute, Councillor Widner?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, maybe through you to Tom or to Rob. Going back
Sure.
to Resurfacer, I really don't have much of a report on what condition it is other than staff are recommending it's having too much repairs. I don't know how many hours are on it. I don't know how much downtime it has. I don't know. I don't see a report from a place that said it's actually worn out. I presume we send this thing out every year and give it a good going over. And it's hard for me to believe that it can be just junk the next year. I just don't understand that. But new isn't always better, so we got to be really careful what we're buying. I know, Rob, we postponed a lot of stuff in Malahide just because it's age doesn't mean it's no good. But I know you're asking about maybe putting propane in the tender. I wouldn't understand that because last time we went through to fix our natural gas refilling, propane was out of the picture 100%. So, but I don't know. Can you answer any questions or?
Rob, would you care to answer that, or Tom? I'm not sure which one would prefer to answer it.
I'll defer to Tom on a few of those.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Widner. Yeah, so the Olympia, I can just give you some brief history, Councillor Widner. In 2020, we spent $4,107. In 2021, we spent $7,387 on repairs. The hours right now on the machine are 5,740. So life cycle of those types of units are anywhere between 8 and 10 years, and we're into our 11th year. On average, you're going to try to trade in those machines around the 4,000 to 6,000 mark. And right now, with our hours at 5,740, we're kind of pushing the envelope, and we're seeing our annual maintenance expenses increase every year. On average, we're putting 500 hours per operating year on that unit. So it's done its job, and it's done its job well, and it's just starting to really nickel and dime our maintenance budget. So I hope I've answered your question.
Well, somewhat. Like 5,700 hours would never bother me a bit. That's not but wore out by any means. You could probably get 15,000. I just don't understand what's so worn out when it gets inspected every year. I would think if they inspected every year, they'd give a report and they'd bring it up to snuff every year, but maybe they don't. I don't know that.
Through you, Madam Chair. When the machine goes, it gets a complete overhaul every year. There's a lot of moving parts to that style of unit, and yeah, the maintenance costs we're seeing increase year after year. So.
Right. You're talking about trading it in with high hours. Well, what difference does it make? Nobody's going to buy it. 6,000 hours probably anyway. So if that's the way we're going, I just wondered. And as far as the rubber matting, or you're talking about tearing the paint or the cement up in the room where it parks with some rubber matting, just bolted down to the floor, alleviate some of that.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councilor Widner. Yeah, well, all options are on the table. I've reached out to some of our peer groups as well, and they're all having the same problem. So I think it's outside of the Elmer circle too. So we're all looking at what are the best options, but rubber matting is certainly something we can review.
Yeah, I would think it'd be the cheapest. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any further questions or comments? Madam Chair, it's Dominique.
Hi, Dominique, go ahead.
Yeah, just a clarification, is this plan showing another resurfacer in 2024?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Deputy Mayor Giguère, that's a typo, sorry.
Are there any further questions or comments? And I apologize to the committee. I've had to change computers and this one is not working all that great either, so you'll have to bear with me. So I don't think I see anybody's hand up, but if you do have a question, by all means, just say.
Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
Madam Chair, through you to Tom, I guess. Has the ice been in full, like is it getting used as much as any functioning normal year?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Lewis. Councillor Lewis, the ice is being used to its maximum capacity. As soon as every time restrictions are lifted, we're selling ice. So we have very little gap in our scheduling. So we're booking as much as possible. Yes, sir.
Sorry, no, misunderstood. In the last year, how much time has been down? Year and a half. Sorry if you misunderstood that, Tom.
Oh, in the last year, how much time has the Resurfacer been down?
Yeah, as far as like, and not, because you haven't been open and functioning in the last year and a half fully, right? Like it hasn't been iced out and like you haven't been like doing the ice as much in the last year and a half as we will be when you're reopening, have you?
No, that's correct. So the ice usage in the scheduling has been sporadic at best, and it's all been rather COVID specific. So, but we still have to take the machine out to do maintenance on the ice and stuff of that nature, but nowhere near a regular operating season.
Okay, I have a hard time supporting replacing something that probably can be saved without, and even if you had to spend it, like a regular service, I'm guessing is a couple thousand just for the service without any repairs. So really, when you start looking at your numbers, you're not really going up a whole lot. And when you start looking at what we're going to pay to put out 100,000, I don't know. I can't support replacing it. I can't see why it can't stick around until there is an actual issue and it's worn out. And then it's like, okay, then you do it. And anytime you can save, like we're replacing something that's not really replaced, like need to be, I see. Just a comment, I guess.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lewis. Are there any further questions or comments? I think I'll interject, Councillor Lewis, too. I think the thing is that it's going to take us about a year before, if we did even look into getting a new one, I believe it's going to take over a year to even get the new one. So we got to keep that in mind, too. So if we were to keep this one another year or two, we always have to be focused on the fact that when we put an RFP out, it's going to take us about a year to get a new one. So I think that's why staff are concerned, because there's such a long wait once you order them. And Tom, am I correct on that?
Yes, Your Worship, you certainly are. It's from date of order to delivery to the door, you're looking anywhere from 10 plus months. So if I can add a point, Your Worship, just regarding the Resurfacer, the board should be well aware that maintenance costs, we'll be seeing those types of maintenance costs year over year. Anywhere from $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, and I just want the board to be aware, like the maintenance costs aren't getting lower; they're increasing year after year because of the age of that piece of equipment. So as long as the board is well aware that we're going to see substantial maintenance costs.
And
Are there any further questions?
Madam Chair,
Sorry,
go ahead.
Dominique, okay, Dominique, I'm sorry. You can go first and then Councillor Chapman.
Thank you. Just a small request, because I think it certainly would help me appreciate what the maintenance plan is, I see that the way things are listed right now, it's almost by year as opposed to components, which is why, for example, we have skating tiles on one line, then we have skating tiles again on another line. If it were, so it's, and then I have compressors, like every fifth line is a compressor component, and then to me, like, I think it would help me appreciate the planning that is gone into that. If, you know, the building, the compressor issue, the computer items, like everything would be organized by item, and then we could see, like year to year, as opposed to sequencing a project list, because I find it very hard, like I said, to appreciate what exactly we're doing and which components we're addressing in different components of the building. Just a small request for future communication.
Okay, thank you. And just before you speak, Councillor Chapman, Rob, did you have a comment?
Just to say I agree, Councillor Giguère. It's been so busy with recreation. Rules are changing almost daily on what's going on at the complex. But we have taken that similar approach in all of our asset management plans. And this is something that we'll be looking at next to show you how everything fits in a linear progression moving down the line. And I think it'll be a little bit easier to follow and read. We haven't gotten to it yet at the complex because we've been focused on maintaining, sort of holding our own during the pandemic. I will say that with the pandemic, I think it's shown us just how important recreation is in the community. And just to point out that the ice resurfacer is mission critical to delivering those services to the community. You can take it out of commission for a couple of days while you wait for a part. You can wait for it to be down, but you have out of service time then for the community. So staff are a little risk adverse. If the board wants to take the risk and, you know, continue to go until there's, you know, no life left in the machine, that's something that the board can choose. But I think the staff are saying, based on the business unit, based on this sort of mission critical piece of infrastructure, probably it's a good time to look at the replacement while we still have a little bit of value left into it as well.
Thank you, Rob. Go ahead, Councillor Chapman.
My question is, with the ice resurfacer, through your worship, if there's a critical failure in the ice resurfacer, as like Rob was just saying, it could be down for a couple of days, it could be down for a couple of months. So is there a rental resurfacer? Like, how would you handle that if it was going to be down for an extended time if we don't have something to replace it?
Go ahead, Tom.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Chapman. So typically the ice resurfacer, if it needs repairs, it'll go to the company that we use, and they provide us with a loaner. So there is ability to still maintain the ice. So yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, I don't see any hands up. So at this point, I guess we'll call the vote. So all those in favor? And I apologize again. I'm going to ask you, Josh, how should we approach this? Because I'm having difficulty with the computer, so I'm not being able to see everyone. Is there another suggestion that you can give me?
Through you, Madam Chair, we may wish to proceed with a recorded vote. That would be at your discretion or any of the board members' discretion. Alternatively, we could you could ask the members to individually announce their individual direction on this motion.
Okay, thank you, Josh. I wasn't sure how we would approach that. Possibly then what I'm going to suggest is, if anyone is opposed, could you please say it? And then we'll, Josh will record, like he'll keep track of the votes. So I'll just leave it up to the members. Just state your name if you're opposed to this particular resolution.
Yeah,
Lewis opposed.
I'm opposed.
I'm opposed. Charlton.
Is anyone else opposed?
Through you, Madam Chair, it's Josh. I'm just having some trouble. So we do have 12 members in attendance. I think that for simplicity and just to ensure that we do accurately record this vote, it might be more convenient for me to read aloud the members in attendance and have them individually. And I'll just ask the Deputy Clerk, Owen, could you please keep track of this just as I announce the members' names? We'll just give Owen 1 second to get ready.
Yes, that's fine.
Josh, before we proceed, maybe it would be advisable too to read the resolution again, just so everyone's clear with the resolution.
Certainly, through you, Madam Chair, the resolution is moved by Councillor Chapman and it's seconded by, sorry, I apologize. It's moved by Member Chapman and seconded by Member Andrews. And it reads that the report respecting the East Elgin Community Complex 2022 capital budget be received as information, and that the EECC board approve the 2022 capital budget in the amount of $377,000, and further that the EECC board's recommendation be forwarded to Malahide and Elmer councils for final approval.
Thank you, Josh. And now we'll proceed with the vote.
Member Oslich?
Oh.
Member Jelinski? Member Jelinski?
No.
Member Jaguar?
Yes.
Member Chapman?
Yes.
Member Widner?
No.
Member French?
Yes.
Member Moore? Member Moore? Right. We'll circle back to Member Moore. Member Barber? Member Barber?
Yes.
Member Lewis?
No.
Member Andrews?
Yes.
Member Charlton?
No.
Member Manel?
Yes.
And then we've got Member Moore? All right, we don't have a vote from Member Moore, Chair French.
Okay.
So just defer to the Deputy Clerk. Owen, could you please just announce the result on that?
Yes, the result is 7 yes, 5 no, and the motion is passed.
Okay, thank you, Owen. We'll move on to the next report, CAO 09-22, East Elkin Community Complex 2022 operational budget.
That the report respecting the East Elgin Community Complex 2022 operational budget be received as information, and that the EECC board approve the 2022 operational budget in the amount of $595,034, and further that the EECC board's recommendation be forwarded to the Malahide and Elmer councils for final approval.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Someone to move and someone to second. Member Charlton and Member Andrews. And I'll turn this over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Chair French. The operational budget before you remains unchanged from what was presented in late November. Attached is a new appendix that provides more current year-end estimates than we had in November. Again, as it's been some time since we met in November, I will highlight for the board that we started our budget process in earnest in the early summer of 2021. Senior management met for every 2 weeks to go through these budgets line by line. It was an exceptionally tough budget year for us. So I know the management team felt like it was death by 1,000 cuts. For the EECC, the focus was both looking for efficiencies and looking at line items that we historically underspent. The EECC has benefited from the town of Elmer amending our employee compensation policy in August of 2021 to move to a fixed increase rather than a CPI calculation for annual adjustments. This may need to be reviewed in future years, though, through a market comparison to remain competitive, as more employers than we anticipated in 2022 went with unheard of salary adjustments. Generally, the rate of turnover at the EECC is higher than what we normally see in Elmer. This is due to numerous factors, but primarily the amount of part-time positions. Certainly, you know, it is a bit of a drain on the town's HR resources, but as you can see, that it does provide us some buffer in the budget that we were able to enjoy in 2021, as you can see from the appendix. And certainly between that and the great work of Tom and his team to really provide sound management of that facility, saw us avoid the $90,000 shortfall that we saw in 2020, despite significant revenue losses due to COVID shutdowns. The year-end process is ongoing. However, it is really quite close upon whether there will be a minor deficit or surplus for 2021. For the town of Elmer members, I would just mention, as we've approved our budget, there won't be any benefit to residents through a reduction of any line item. If any line item is increased, though, it was result in council having to approve a 2022 budget amendment. With that, myself and staff will try our best to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Andy. Are there any questions for Andy? And if I don't see your hand, please speak up. It appears there aren't any questions. Seeing no hands up, Josh, would you proceed with the recorded vote, please?
Certainly, through you, your worship. We'll just give Owen 1 moment to prepare himself.
Okay.
Yep. Right. Okay, Member Oslich. Oh, apologies, Member Oslich. I'll reread that. Member Oslich.
Yes.
Okay. Member Jelinski.
Yes.
Member Jaguar.
Yes.
Member Chapman.
Yes.
Member Widner.
Yes.
Member Moore.
Yes.
Member Lewis.
Yes.
Member Andrews.
Yes.
Member Charlton.
Yes.
Member Manel.
Yes.
And Member French.
Yes.
Okay. And with that, the vote is carried.
Thank you, Josh. The next report is CAO 10-22 Trillium Grant Report.
That the report CAO 1022 respecting the grant application update be received as information.
Need someone to move and someone to second?
Move it.
Okay, I'm not sure who said that.
Or.
Okay, thanks, Max. And Councillor Charlton. Okay, and I'll turn that over to you, Andy.
Thank you, Chair French. So we've saved the bad news for last. We didn't get this grant funding. We did put our best foot forward, but the parking lot, it doesn't have a great narrative on a grant application to repave a life cycle improvement of a parking lot, unfortunately. And it was a very competitive grant process, but we will go back and look for other grants that we can bring forward to the board. I think it's going to be a big part of how we try to finance for a lot of the big challenges that we see in the future. And with that, I'll try to answer any questions the board might have.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Are there any questions for Andy? I don't see any hands. Oh, go
Sorry,
ahead.
Madam Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Councilor Jagger.
Yeah, just a small comment. I can fully appreciate how a parking lot is not the sexiest project for grant application, but I'm wondering if there's something else on the capital list that would fit other grant criteria, whether it's accessibility or it could be that then we apply for something else and then what we don't spend on that could go to the parking lot. So just to make sure we look at every grant possible. Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions or comments? Okay,
Just a question, and just in regard to Dominique's question, would the ice resurfacer qualify under the Trillium grant?
I will have to review the Trillium grants would be, I believe it's closed now, so I don't believe there's an opportunity for that. I think that the revitalization grant would be what we'd be looking at as a potential grant now. We can evaluate that and see if it is an applicable one to put in. And certainly, if it is the desire of the board that we examine that and go forward, we might just go directly to the respective councils to ask for a resolution of support to expedite that process.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Are there any further comments? Okay, I don't see any hands up. Josh, we'll proceed with the recorded vote, please.
Member Oslich,
Yes.
Member Jelinski,
Yes.
Member Jagger,
Yes.
Member Chapman,
Yes.
Member Widner,
Yes.
Member French,
Yes.
Member Moore,
Yes.
Member Barber,
Yes, my name was missed on the operational budget. I support that as well.
I apologize, Member Barber, Member Lewis,
Yes.
Member Andrews,
Yes.
Member Charlton,
Yes.
Member Manel.
Yes.
With that, the motion is carried.
Thank you, Josh. Are there any inquiries by members? Okay, seeing none. We have no closed session this evening. So the resolution to adjourn, please.
The board, that the board do now adjourn at 7:52 p.m.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second.
I'll move it.
Okay, Councillor Barber and Councillor Charlton. And
Madam Chair, can I just interrupt? Did Tom have a question? I just saw him waving his hand.
I'm sorry, did you have a question, Tom?
Through you, Madam Chair, I just wanted to let the board, just give the board a quick update on our hydro usage during our shutdown, if that's okay.
Sure, we haven't voted yet, so we're still in session. Go ahead.
I think it's just so I can give a kudos to the operations staff. I just wanted to give a brief summary of that. For the 25 days, that equates to 600 hours that the complex was shut down. Our operations staff was able to scale back compressor usage to less than 2.5 hours per day. So our total time during the shutdown was 237 hours out of 600. So that's very significant hydro savings. So I just wanted to make sure that the board was aware that the complex staff really went above and beyond to scale back our hydro usage.
Thank you for that, Tom.
You're welcome, Your Worship. Thank you, Deputy.
We'll proceed with the vote if there are no further comments.
Member Manel,
Yes.
Member Charlton,
Yes.
Member Andrews,
Yes.
Member Lewis,
Yes.
Member Barber,
Yes.
Member Moore,
Yes.
Member Member French,
Yes.
Member Widner,
Yes.
Member Chapman,
Yes.
Member Jaguar,
Yes.
Member Jelinski,
Yes.
Member Oslich.
Yes.
Motion is carried.
Thank you, Josh. And thank you, everyone, for your patience. I do apologize. Computers sometimes don't cooperate when you want them to. So thank you very much for everything and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye.